If you're like me, when someone talks about frog fishing, you probably get really excited. I've said it before, but it's really the same as if someone says pizza to me. It gets me really excited, and there's good reason for that because frog fishing is not only extremely fun, but it is one of the best ways to catch a really big fish. But there is a couple of big mistakes that guys make when fishing a frog, and today I want to talk about 3 of those. So let's jump on in. Now, the first mistake that a lot of guys make with a frog is not fishing this bait when other people aren't. I think for a lot of us bass fishermen, when we get to the water, we kind of have certain lures in mind when we see certain situations out there. For example, a lot of us, when we get to the water, if we see kind of those cheese mats or that pond scum or just a lot of vegetation in general, that is the time when a lot of us think to pick up a frog. And I'm not saying that a frog is not gonna work then, but I think the mistake that a lot of anglers make is not fishing a frog in situations that don't necessarily call for fishing a frog. For example, I was fishing a local tournament a couple years ago on a body of water in Ohio where you would just not really think to pick up a frog. This particular body of water has pretty much just rock banks, and then it has some wood cover on it as well. A lot of guys, when they fish there, they're thinking about crankbaits and spinner baits or flipping and pitching some sort of soft plastic into that wood cover. Now, during this particular tournament, I had caught 2 fish early on a crankbait, but for some reason, I thought to pick up a frog really late in the day, and it made the biggest difference in that tournament. As a matter of fact, I ended up winning that tournament by using a frog. Now, I'm fishing in Ohio. I didn't catch a lot of weight. I think I had 8 pounds that day with my 5 fish, but it was more weight than anyone else had. And what I was doing is I was skipping this frog kind of next to wood laydowns where a lot of guys were flipping and pitching soft plastics. And I was able to go behind people and catch fish that were just used to seeing those soft plastics. So presenting a frog to fish that don't normally see frogs is something that can really help you to catch a lot more fish. Not only is it situational to what you are fishing, but it's also a time of the year thing. A lot of us are thinking of fishing a frog during the summer, maybe sometimes into the fall, depending on what lakes you are fishing. But one of my absolute favorite ways to catch pre-spawn bass when that water temp is kind of that 55 to 62, 63 degrees is with a frog. You do not get a lot of bites during the pre-spawn on a frog, but the ones that you get are really, really big. So just think about when other guys aren't fishing a frog is actually a great time to pick up this bait. Now, the second mistake a lot of guys make with a frog is not setting their frog up for success. And what I mean by that is every frog that you get out of the package typically needs a little bit of tweaking to really help you to hook up with more fish, to help you to land more fish. Because one of the big problems with fishing frogs is that you can miss fish and you can lose fish. So what I like to do when I get a frog out of the package, and this frog right here is actually my favorite frog that I own. This is the Spro Poppin' Frog. I use this frog probably 70-75% of the time that I am frog fishing. I absolutely love this thing, and one of the reasons that I love this frog so much is actually because of the slenderness of the frog. If you kind of compare these 2 frogs, you can see that this one is a lot more slender. Where I fish in Ohio, we have a lot of 1.5 to 2 pound fish that we like to catch. And I noticed years ago that I would actually catch a lot more with the poppin' frog than I did with kind of your bigger pointed nose frog. Now, with that being said, there are a few tweaks that I will make to this frog when I get it out of the package. And the most important tweaks to this bait come down to the hooks. What I like to do with a frog is actually to make it less weedless. I know that that sounds maybe a little counterintuitive, and I have done this with pretty much every single brand of frog that I've ever used. And what you wanna do is you wanna bend the hook of the frog out a little bit from the body and up. This is something that I learned from Kyle Welcher, who is a professional bass fisherman on the Bassmaster Elite Series. He's also a fanatic about frogs. And like I said, you're actually going to make this bait a little bit less weedless, but you're going to hook up with substantially more bass out there on the water. So when you pick up that frog, remember, bend that hook out and up, and it's really going to help you to hook up with a lot more of those fish. Now, the third mistake that a lot of anglers make while fishing a frog is not having a follow-up bait. And I'm gonna show you a really quick clip as to why it's so important to have some sort of follow-up bait.
Just had a bite. Oh, he's trying to get it. He's trying to get it. There's a bass right there trying to get it. Something that's always good to keep with you when you're frogging is a flipping setup as well, because sometimes they'll miss that frog and you'll pitch back in and you can get them flipping. Oh, there he is too. There he is. Come on, baby. Just like that. Come on, baby. It's a good one. Oh, let's go, baby. There we go. That is a good one right there. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful.
This happens all the time while frog fishing. Even when you make the tweaks to your bait, you may be fishing in situations where the bass are just hitting that frog with a closed mouth, or they're just not eating it and you miss a lot of those fish. So having some sort of follow-up bait, in this case, a Texas rig, is a great way to still be able to catch that fish that hits your frog. Another bait that I use a lot, especially if I'm in open water situations, is a wacky rig. Simply throwing a wacky rig at a fish that misses your bait. There are a lot of times where I end up catching that fish, and it can make or break that day out there on the water. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the Sportsman's Outfitters channel, and I will see you in the next video.